Please be seated. Honorable Kaula, why are you rising?
On a point of order, ngiyathokoza. Chairperson, since you have now made it customary that you occupy that chair, I'm moving that, if the ANC wins next year, they must make you the next national chairperson of the National Council of Provinces.
You're out of order.
That house now, that chair belongs to you now, Chairperson.
You're out of order, Honorable Kaula. Honorable members, does any member wish to give a notice of a motion? Notice of a motion? None. Does any member wish to move a motion without notice? Okay. Honorable Samka.
Thank you, Honorable House Chairperson. I hereby move without notice on behalf of the African National Congress that the Council notes that middle-distance runner Caster Semenya stole the show at the South African Sports Awards held in Bloemfontein by walking away with the Sports Star of the Year, Sportswoman of the Year, and the People's Choice Award. Also note that Casa was rewarded for a superb season on the track, which included multiple medals at the Commonwealth Games, CAA African Senior Championships, IAF Diamond League, and IAF Continental Cup events. Therefore, congratulate Caster Semenya on this marvelous achievement and hope that she continues to make us proud. I so move, Honorable House Chair.
Is there any objection to the motion? No. The motion is agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Isaac?
Chairperson, I'm sorry, I apologize. No, it was just a point of order, but I see the members left the House. Maybe if the member comes back, you will rule on whether it's orderly for a member to be attired in unsavory attire in the House. But you'll rule when the member comes back. Thank you.
Honorable Makwebu.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby wish to move without notice that this House congratulate the Child Witness Institute on recently being requested by the Chief Justice of Jammu and Kashmir High Courts in India to train court personnel on child witness in 2019. Note that the Child Witness Institute is a non-government organization based in Nelson Mandela Bay that advocates for children's rights in the criminal justice system in South Africa and across the world. Further note that other achievements by the Child Witness Institute, having developed sexual offences court model for South Africa and the Kids Online campaign in response to cases of child online abuse and exploitation in South Africa. Their international work includes having been invited by the High Court of New Delhi, India, to develop guidelines on working with victims of sexual offences, as well as working with the UNICEF Maya to develop a protocol for their judges on the use of their child-friendly interview rooms. And finally, and lastly, thank the Child Witness Institute for their tremendous work and efforts in protecting our children and ensuring that their rights are protected and that their rights are considered and that their rights are realized. I so move.
Is there any objection to the motion? The motion is agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Makwe.
Thank you, Chairperson. I hereby move without notice on behalf of the African National Congress that the Council notes that the Higher Education and Training Minister, Naledi Pandor said that the apartheid architects who dreamt up a university for colored people only and stuck it in the Cape Flats could never have imagined the spirit and resilience of our students. Also note that she was addressing guests at the unveiling of the University of the Western Cape Community Health Sciences building that has costed about 244 million rand. Further notes that the UWC's CHS building will house 4 nursing laboratories that stimulate hospital ward environments. It will also house a rehabilitation gym for occupational therapy and psychotherapy departments and natural medicine laboratories with treatment rooms and dispensaries. We therefore congratulate the University of the Western Cape and the ANC government for this great transformational progress. I so move.
Is there any objection to the motion? In light of the objection, the motion may not be proceeded with. The motion without notice will now become notice of a motion. It's Honorable Smith. Yeah, Honorable Singh, sorry, Honorable Kaula. Order members, Honorable Kaula.
Ngiyathokoza sihlalo hloniphekile. On behalf of Inkatha Freedom Party, Ikare Yatokoloko Yasechaba, I move a motion without notice that, noting that one of the key threats to global security today is climate change. Further noting that continued growth in emissions of greenhouse gases has caused extreme weather conditions. These extreme weather conditions have caused heat waves, droughts, catastrophic floods in many parts of the world. In such situations where countries are facing unprecedented challenges, the need for collaboration has never been this great. The need to take advantage of the collective wisdom of humankind in formulating workable solutions to climate change has never been this great. Further noting that since Taiwan has made significant progress in limiting greenhouse gas emissions, recycling and reusing resources, in 2017, Taiwan resource recovery rate was at 52.5%, a ratio surpassed only by Germany and Austria. Further noting that Taiwan is committed to being part of the solution and willing to share its knowledge and experiences in environmental management, disaster prevention, and early warning systems with other countries of the world. The IFP calls upon this House to view positively the efforts of Taiwan in inclusion into the United Nations Convention on Climate Change. Climate change is a global challenge requiring inclusive global responses and solutions. I so move, Chair.
Is there any objection to the motion? The motion is agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Mampuru.
On behalf of the African National Congress, I hereby move that the House knows and welcomes with appreciation that a 3.5 million Maths and Science Center is said to be established at Masia Primary School in Vuwane, Limpopo. Also knows that the new Masia Maths and Science Academy will benefit around 2,000 learners in primary and secondary schools in Vuwane and surrounding areas. Further knows that these milestone projects come after arson attacks which engulfed the area during violent protests in 2016 that saw an unrest and the torching of schools. Therefore, commend the leadership and the community standing together for the betterment of their children's future. Praises and thanks to go to the same foundation in ensuring the realization of the project. I so move.
Is there any objection to the motion? The motion is agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Matime.
Chairperson, thank you very, very much. Use this one. Thank you very much, Chairperson. On behalf of the African National Congress, I wish to move without notice that today the Council knows that this week the Smile Foundation was celebrating 10 years of bringing smiles to young faces at Tigerberg Hospital and mark the milestone by assisting more children with reconstructive surgery too. Also note that the foundation has been hosting Smile Weeks at the hospital since 2008 and have been performing cleft lip and palate surgery, craniofacial surgery, and ear and nose reconstructive procedures on children in need. 3, further note that this week, 20 young patients' lives will be positively touched, making it 955 children whose lives have been changed by the foundation. Lastly, Chairperson, therefore congratulate the Smile Foundation, Tigerberg Hospital, and their sponsors on this initiative and wish them well in their future endeavors. I so move.
Is there any objection to the motion? The motion is agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Singh.
Thank you, Chairperson. I hereby move without notice on behalf of the African National Congress that this council notes the struggle stalwart and author of poet Dr. Wally Serutu has been honored with the National Poet Laureate Prize at the South African Literacy Awards in Pretoria on the 6th of November 2018. Also notes that the 64-year-old Serutu has also dedicated in the literature world and has published his first book named Yaki Ngomo in 1972 and went on to win the Ingrid Jonker Prize for the debut poetry in English. Therefore, congratulates Dr. Serutu on bagging such a prestigious award. I so move.
Is there any objection to the motion? The motion is agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Mpambo Sipugwana.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby wish to move without notice that this House notes the resignation of Malusi Gigaba as the Minister of Home Affairs on Tuesday afternoon and his resignation as a Member of Parliament today. It is rather disappointing that President Ramaphosa did not immediately dismiss Gigaba when a court of law found that he committed perjury. Further note that when he was sworn as an MP, Malusi Gigaba took an oath to honor the Constitution of the Republic. However, it is evident that he failed in doing so, and we are delighted to see this much anticipated resignation. And now that he has been relieved of his duties as a minister, Malusi Gigaba's hands will be less full. I so move, Chairperson. Thank you.
Is there any objection to the motion? Is there any objection to the motion? In light of the objection, the motion may not be proceeded with. The motion without notice will now become notice of a motion. Honorable Quimby, you are the last one.
Thank you, Chairperson. I hereby move without notice on behalf of the African National Congress that the Council knows that a suspect was wounded in a shootout with the police when he and his 12 accomplices attempted to rob a church in Philippi East. Also note that the police conducted an observation while church members transported the congregation's money on Sunday when the robbers arrived and opened fire on the police. Further note that one suspect was wounded and 13 others arrested, while 3 unlicensed firearms were seized by the police. Therefore, congratulate the police on their speedy response to this new development of robbing places of worship, and hope that this will send a message to other would-be robbers. I so move, Chairperson.
Thank you. Is there any objection to the motion? The motion is agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. We now come to the motion on the order paper as printed in the name of the Chief Whip. Honorable Chief Whip.
Thank you, House Chair, and I move that the Council extends the term of the ad hoc committee established to inquire into intervention in terms of Section 100 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, 1996, in the Northwest Provincial Government, that is to monitor, review, and receive progress reports on the intervention until such time that a decision is taken to terminate it. I so move, Chair.
Thank you. As there is no speakers list, I shall first now put the question. The question is that the motion be agreed to in accordance with Rule 7.1. I shall first allow provinces the opportunity to make declaration of vote if they so wish. We shall now proceed to voting. I'll do it alphabetical order. Eastern Cape.
Thank you, Chair. The Eastern Cape supports the move.
Thank you. Free State.
Support the move, Chair.
Thank you. Gauteng.
Gauteng supports, Chair.
Thank you. KwaZulu-Natal.
KZN supports.
Thank you. Limpopo.
Papa supports.
Thank you. Mpumalanga.
Mpumalanga supports.
Thanks. Northern Cape.
Northern Cape supports, Chair.
Northwest.
Northwest support.
Western Cape.
Western Cape support, Chairperson.
9 provinces voted in favor. I therefore declare the motion agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. The Secretary will read the first order of the day.
Consideration of National Health Laboratory Services Amendment Bill, B15D 2017, and report of Select Committee on Social Services thereon.
Honorable Samka.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable members, the National Health Laboratory Bill that was referred to us as the Select Committee on Social Services by the Portfolio Committee on Health for deliberations and concurrence. Honorable members, the National Health Laboratory Services is the backbone of the health systems, as it provides the blood tests needed to diagnose and monitor disease ranging from HIV to cervical cancer. Not only do its facilities provide all the tests ordered for public sector patients, the military and prisons, but it also does highly specialized tests not available in the private sector. However, honorable members, the NHLS is currently faced with a number of challenges. The biggest challenge is the non-payment by provincial departments of health for laboratory services rendered. There is no law that forces provinces to pay the services rendered by the laboratory services, hence the introduction of the NHLS bill. Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, it is critical that the current efforts supported by the National Department of Health to cover money owed to the National LS be urgently addressed to ensure the financial viability of the NHLS and enable it to continue carrying out its mandate of providing quality laboratory services to the public health sector. Honorable members, as the members of the Select Committee on Social Services, with the mandates received from our respective provinces, we believed that it is important that NHLS be directly funded from the fiscus as opposed to provinces, as there is no law to force them, that is provincial department, to pay up. Honorable members, as the members of the National Council of Provinces, we did not just rubber stamp bills that came from the National Assembly. Provinces had made their own inputs on the bill. As a result, 7 provinces voted in favor of the bill. The Northern Cape province abstained from voting as it did not have a final mandate. The mandate from the Free State province was still awaited. Honorable members, to conclude, given that the majority of provinces voted in favor of the bill, the Select Committee on Social Services agreed to the National Health Laboratory Services Amendment Bill, B15D of 2017. I thank you, honorable members. I table the bill on the National Health Laboratory Bill.
Thank you. Thank you. That concludes the debate. I shall now put the question. The question is that the amendment bill be agreed to in accordance with Rule 71. I shall first allow provinces to make declaration of vote if they so wish. We shall now proceed to voting. It has been brought to my attention that is only one province without a mandate. It's Northern Cape. Eastern Cape?
The Eastern Cape supports the amendment bill.
Free State?
Siyaxhasa sihlalo.
Gauteng?
Gauteng supports, Chair.
KwaZulu Natal?
KwaZulu Natal supports, Chair.
Limpopo?
Limpopo supports, Chair.
Mpumalanga?
Malanga supports, Chair.
We don't have a mandate from Northern Cape. Then we go straight to Northwest.
Northwest supports, Chair.
Western Cape?
Western Cape supports, Chair.
8 provinces voted in favor. I therefore declare the amendment bill agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Before we proceed, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome our special delegates from Limpopo, Eastern Cape. You are welcome to this august house called the National Council of Provinces. We now come to the subject for discussion as printed in the order paper. Debate on the high unemployment rate in South Africa and ways of turning the tide by growing the economy and creating jobs. It will be opened by Honorable Makwebo. Honorable Makwebo.
Honorable Chairperson, members and fellow South Africans. Thomas Kiley, Scottish philosopher, writer,
Order, members, let's listen to Honorable Makwebo.
Historian and teacher, once said, I quote, "A man willing to work and unable to find work is perhaps the saddest sight the fortunes inequality exhibits under the sun." I close quote. Honorable Chairperson, unemployment diminishes people and takes away their dignity when they must beg. The government, therefore, has the responsibility to create jobs and regrettably have failed in this regard. In 1994, the unemployment rate was approximately 20%. That translates into 1.988 million people unemployed. Expanded unemployment in 1994 was sitting at 31.5%, or 3.672 million people. But guess what? Today, 24 years later, unemployment figures have escalated. As per Stats SA, they were sitting at 27.5% at Q3 of 2018-2019, or 6.209 million people unemployed. Expanded unemployment is therefore currently sitting at 37.3%, or a whopping 9.757 million people unemployed today. Honorable Chairperson, if you put this in global terms, with 190 million officially unemployed people in the world today, South Africa has 4.3% of the world's broader unemployment number, with 0.77% of the world's population we have almost 5% of the world's unemployed adults. This, Chairperson, is completely unacceptable. If we compare ourselves with other emerging economies, this becomes very tragic. We are at 27.5% unemployment rate. Brazil is sitting at 11.8, Russia at 5.5, India at 8.8, and China the lowest at 3.9. How are we supposed to grow our economy and ensure that South Africa has access to basic services if we cannot put our people and our economy at work? Honorable Chairperson, we are sitting on a ticking time bomb. And we need to deal with this matter soberly, and we need to deal with this situation real fast. One of the best ways of addressing unemployment is through small business development. In creating jobs, we should therefore recognize that small businesses are the lifeblood of South African economy and contribute to 60% of labor force and 34% of our GDP. However, the reality is that some 80% of South African small businesses fail within 3 years of trading. Many of these businesses fail because of the unnecessary burden placed on them, such as red tape and late payments by government and big business. Clearly, again, we are failing in this regard, and this is an ANC failure. They are the governing party, and they must own up. Small businesses can drive our economy, Honorable Chair, like they do in successful economies. Honorable Chairperson, we all raise our children hoping that one day they will graduate from universities and technicons and that they will get jobs. But this is not happening as it should. We are failing our children. According to State South Africa, 6.4% or 504,000 graduates are unemployed today. Again, this is a ticking time bomb caused by the ANC failure and the state capture. Honorable Chairperson, as if this is not enough, we have a further problem. Many young people are today not in training. Compared to Q3 of 2017, the percentage of youth aged between 15 and 34 years who were not in employment, education or training increased from 0.7 from 38.3% to 39% in Q3 of 2018. The not in education or training rate increased for both male and female youth in Q4 of 2018. More than 4 in every 10 young people were not in employment, education or training. That's almost 1 out of every 2 youth who should be employed, who should be learning skills at work, climbing up the career ladder and improving their family lives and their lives. Honorable Chairperson, again, this is another ANC failure. And this failure is compounded by rampant corruption. Today, we all realize and we are aware that municipalities have hit the rock bottom, like in West Rand district municipalities, where they cannot pay the wages. The ANC government's corruption has caused many miseries for our people and compounds the unemployment. And their corruption is characterized by various things, namely sex for jobs and cash for jobs scandals. Nepotism and cronyism is rife and prevalent. Incompetent people are in positions which should be staffed by the best people this country has. People should not have to pay for sex or money for jobs. It is estimated that corruption in government and in our state entities has costed our country a whopping 100 billion rands. This, Honorable Chairperson, is the money that could have been used to create jobs for fellow South Africans who desperately need them. It could have been used to educate and skill our labor force so that our children and our brothers and our sisters, they can earn a living. Honorable Chairperson, this is not a matter for populism. This is not a matter for denialism. This is the true story. In my hand, I have these pictures. These are the pictures every South African is confronted with every morning. As we drive up and down, we see our brothers looking for jobs, begging in the streets. We should be ashamed, and shame on the government of today. Shame on you, ANC. Honorable Chairperson, members and fellow South Africans, the question that arises, therefore, is how do we turn the tide and put South Africa back on track and create jobs for our people? The ANC has been in power for 24 years, yet unemployment has increased under their government. The ANC has failed to deliver jobs to South Africans. Now what do we do? Well, I'll tell you what needs to be done. 3 key things should be done. 1, we need to fight corruption. Anyone found guilty of corruption must be sentenced to a minimum of 15 years in jail. We need to make sure that public money is used for the people. We need to make sure that we are transparent with the use of public money. We need to establish independent units dedicated to identify, prevent, prosecute, and fight fraud. We need to ensure that payment of public money is done according to the legal prescripts. We need to ensure that direct elections of political holders so that people can hold their president, premiers, and mayors directly accountable. Honorable Chairperson, we need, as we fight corruption, implement regular life audits for all politicians and government officials. We need to protect and encourage whistleblowers who report corruption, because corruption is robbing the money that should be used for creating jobs. Secondly, and quickly, how do we turn the tide? We need to create fair access to real and long-term jobs. This is how we do it. 1, we need to introduce a voluntary national service, 1-year income and skills development for school leavers. We need to create job centers throughout South Africa that provide information, advice, and free internet to job seekers. The NYDA is a farce and has failed our youth. We require well-run and functioning centers which help the youth, not enriching government cronies. In the Western Cape, we all know we have job centers like ICANN in Elsis River, funded by provincial government, which equips residents with necessary skills to enter job market. Again, how do we turn this tide? We need to grow small business opportunities through increased funding assistance and remove blockage and red tape. In the Western Cape, we have done this. We have created the Red Tape Reduction Unit and the Red Tape Reduction Business Helpline to assist businesses to cut through the red tape. This is doable, Chairperson, but the ANC lacks the will. We need to prosecute and eliminate the practice of sex for jobs, cash for jobs, and interview carpets. And we need to prosecute this practice for cash for jobs, and we need to ensure that as we allocate jobs, we allocate them in the manner that is free and fair. Thirdly, Chairperson, as we deal with the crisis of unemployment, how do we turn the tide? This is the third point I'm bringing across. We need to secure our borders and stop illegal immigration. No country in the world can afford not to secure their borders, as uncontrolled immigration violates the rights of ordinary South Africans who must compete for scarce resources. Honorable Chairperson, securing our borders, we must also attract foreign nationals with scarce skills to South Africa to help grow our economy and create jobs. So we will be mindful when we do this. Honorable Chairperson, members, and fellow South Africans, these are key 3 things amongst many the DA is making or is pledging to South Africans. The DA is making these pledges to South Africans because we know we've got capable men and women to fix the unemployment that the ANC government is incapable of fixing. We need leadership and change capable of dealing with the current South African unemployment crisis. The ANC hosts nothing else but talk shops and job summits which amount to nothing. Their job summit in October and 0 small businesses were represented. The Democratic Alliance is bringing change that builds one South Africa for all. Today, the experience of South Africans is for job for pairs, sex for pairs, cash for jobs, and these carpet interviews. Tomorrow, we can bring the change we need. As the classical example is the Western Cape government has proven that these steps they have laid to create jobs. Between the first quarter, Honorable Chairperson, of 2017 and 18, the Western Cape government created 75% of new jobs to South Africa. That's 165 jobs added to South African economy. In the same period, Gauteng lost 124,000 jobs. This is despite the DA-led coalition government of the city of Johannesburg creating 109,000 jobs in the first quarter of 2019. This is unacceptable. Honorable Chairperson, During the day zero, we met with stakeholders throughout the world and let everyone know that Cape Town was open for business. We didn't have one ratings downgrade during this period. During the first quarter of 2018, in the midst of day zero looming, Westgrove facilitated over 1 billion in investments in Cape Town, supporting the creation of 549 direct jobs. In today's world, with climate change a reality, we need to show the world how resilient South Africans are. Cape Town's ability to avoid a crisis during 1 in 1,000-year drought boosted the investment case for Cape Town. We showed and demonstrated where the DA governs, we create attractive environments for economic growth and investment. Honorable Chairperson, every day our people are suffering, and every day unemployment under the ANC rule is climbing and the rate is increasing. The life is getting more expensive and fewer people have jobs. Jane Addams, actress and award winner, once said, and I quote, "Of all the aspects of social misery, nothing is so heartbreaking as unemployment," close quote. We need to create jobs through creating the right environment. It is time for South Africans to get back to work. Unemployment is not only a waste of human potential, but unemployment is the human misery that the ANC has created. Once again, shame on you. The ANC has proven again and again that they lack innovation and the political will needed to solve the unemployment crisis. The DA is the only party with a plan to create access to real and long-term jobs. And we have a proven track record, and our strength is good governance, our strength is anti-corruption, our strength is integrity, where we allocate jobs in a manner that is free, in a manner that is fair, where we ensure that we are transparent with access to public money and the spend of that public money. Honorable Chairperson, this is a crisis that we need to all resolve, and it's very clear that the government of the day has failed to do so. And therefore, the Democratic Alliance, we pledge to South Africans that we have the solution. I thank you, and go Sindabulela.
Thank you. Thank you. Honorable Khai.
Honorable House Chairperson, MECs present, Deputy Minister in absence, I know he's coming, special delegates, our Deputy Chair of Chairs from the Eastern Cape, honorable members. My speech is focusing on historical context, because it's important that we should look at the history so that we don't debate in vacuum. I'm tempted to sweep after the speaker, but there is a sweeper who is going to take care of the situation, but sometimes you are tempted. Yeah. South Africa is ranked by the World Bank as an upper middle income country, together with countries such as Algeria, Botswana, and Turkey. Our country's population stands at just over 57.7 million. Our unemployment rate stands at 27.5% in terms of the narrow definition of unemployment. By any standard, this figure is worryingly high, and true to habit, some political parties are going to tell us in this House how government has failed our people and allowed unemployment to skyrocket to the current levels. According to their narrative, all the challenges we face started in 1994. The honorable member before me, when he was quoting the figures, he started in 1994. So the world started in 1994, according to him. After the ANC led the country to historic democratic breakthrough. Talking about facts and analyzing problems using the prism of historical materialism is not very profitable to the endeavors of some politicians and the media who are seeking to create news headlines by bashing the ANC government. But in our tradition as a Congress movement, we analyze difficulties honestly and seek to uncover their true nature, their essence, in the interest of finding sustainable solutions. This is essential in developing an understanding of the seemingly intractable problems we face as a nation, such as chronic and structural unemployment. A close study of the unemployment data published in the third quarter survey by StatSA reveals some uncomfortable truths about our national situation. If we look at unemployment figures in terms of the expanded definition, which include those work seekers who are too discouraged to look for work, we do that by race. We discover that among Black Africans, out of a labor force of 21.1 million, 9.7 million were unemployed in the third quarter of this year. This means that 41.8% of Black African people of working age are unemployed. Within the colored population, the figure is at 27.6%. Indian and Asian people account for 17.5% of the unemployed population. And unemployment among white South Africans stands at 9.3%. Looking at the figures by province, we discover that unemployment ranges vastly from lowest, Western Cape and Gauteng, in the 20s and 30s respectively, to all other provinces with over 40% unemployment rate. I need to emphasize that these two provinces have never had a problem of Bantu stance, and also their baseline has always been higher.
Honorable, hi, let me take Honorable Mikalakis.
Thank you, House Chairperson. I rise to ask whether the member would be willing to take a question, please.
Honorable Khai, are you ready to take a question?
After the speech, I'll be ready.
Okay,
I'm not scared of you.
Honorable.
After I finished with the speech. In a nutshell, the data from StatSA tell us that the burden of unemployment is carried overwhelmingly by Black Africans and colored people, and by largely rural and underdeveloped provinces. These are provinces in our country that were designated by the apartheid state as homelands or cheap migrant labor reserves. Statistics also tells us another story about the gendered character of the unemployment. Women account for 41.2% of the unemployed population, while men account for 33.9%. Finally, the statistics underscore the importance of education in labor market when we examine figures of youth of our country who are not in employment or training. In the third quarter of 2018, more than 50% of these young people between the ages of 15 and 34 had an education level below matric, followed by those with matric qualification at 35.1. Only 2% of unemployed youth in South Africans are graduates. How did we get there? The democratic breakthrough of our country achieved in 1994 was greeted with much praise. However, experience gained from those countries that attained freedom before South Africa has taught us that democratization does not automatically resolve the continuing, even deepening economic inequalities. This was more severe in South Africa, given the extreme forms of racialized and gendered poverty and inequality, characterized by the low absolute standard of well-being among the majority of black people. We would argue that our debate on unemployment must be rooted adequately in the realities of South African economy. The central theme of our argument is that what has been termed the Minerals Energy Complex, MEC, lies at the core of South African economy, not only by virtue of its weight in economic activity, but also through the determining role throughout the rest of the economy. Any economic analysis and policies that are formulated and debated without reference to this simple and central fact are futile. Indeed, many political parties, even some academics and media commentariat, have overlooked and even consciously resisted this reality when they propose policies as if these can be free from the MECs. So what do we mean by this term, mineral energy complex? There are those sectors associated with minerals and energy in the narrow technical sense that lie at the core of the major sectors of South African economy. The role of gold and as a key sector in the history of our economy is well known. In the 100 years since its discovery, some estimates put gold as having generated as much as 40% of GDP through its direct and indirect effects. Its importance has declined in recent years with the declining price of gold. The fertility of reserves and the emergence of other sources of supply in the world market. However, other metals have gained in prominence, especially the platinum group of metals. The same is true of coal. It is still responsible for over 80% of our country's primary energy needs. It also provides for 20% of the country's exports and 1/3 of all non-gold exports. But very little coal is used to direct energy needs.
Honorable, hi, sorry, let me take Honorable Mokwele. Honorable Mokwele, why are you standing?
I'm standing on a point of privilege. That's to say, welcome back, Mama. We were well behaved when you were away. So,
Can you take your
we
seat?
welcome you back.
Continue, Honorable Khai.
The vast majority is either converted to electricity at over 50% or into oil over 30%. On a global scale, the South African economy is uniquely dependent on electricity and is uniquely electricity intensive, with levels of consumption per capita comparable, for example, to those of the United Kingdom. Despite limited domestic consumption by majority of the population, this is primarily due to its use in mining and mineral processing. Manufacturing accounts for a slightly greater proportion, but most of our manufacturing industry have historically been closely related to and form part of the minerals energy complex, with electricity heavily used in small number of plants in engineering, iron, steel, base metals, and chemicals. Thus, coal is produced to generate electricity, which acts as a major direct and indirect input to the production of commodities. History of South African capital, the history of the configuration of the interests of capital, particularly from the 1930s and 40s, a period in which there was considerable disjuncture between economic power held by the English, foreign and mining capital, and political power held by Afrikaner capital, holds relevant lessons for our country today. I want to emphasize that this speech is focusing on the historical development. Our comrades after me will talk to the policy intervention and policy initiatives that the ANC government is taking. So be patient. The state depends upon the sources of revenue that could be generated from the MEC and how it could intervene to obtain and use them. However, a crucial consequence of the disjuncture between economy and political power made it difficult to employ a strategy for industrialization based on diversification of the economic strengths found in mining. Mining capital itself was short of a guarantee that collaboration with the state would not lead eventually to policy penalties from a hostile government or even nationalization. The nationalist government could not secure its election if it was seen to be pursuing policy overtly collaborating and supportive of mining capital, which in turn could not be certain that the returns from an industrialization strategy will be secure from government appropriation. Thus, private capital opted for a strategy of importing inputs and exporting profits to Europe and North America. Post-1994, the ANC came into government in the context of a negotiated political settlement. Negotiation inevitably involved a series of compromises that to some extent restrict the practicality of significant shift in economic power. Consequently, the position of large private capital has been securely safeguarded in the 25 years of our democracy. The debate on who holds economic power and how it is exercised remain critical to our understanding of the unemployment crisis in our country. For otherwise, activity is poorly coordinated in terms of the provision of mutually reinforcing access to finance, markets, and technology. As a consequence of the above, employment generation, broadening of our skill base, and the opportunities to diversify into new sectors of industry are severely constrained. In a lot of public discourse on economy, too much emphasis is placed on, one, promoting a spurious business confidence pandering to the whims of elusive markets, which constrains consideration of more effective and more certain policy making. Our national debates are called priority to a minority of opinion makers and business interests, but has not guaranteed a tangible and positive net social return. Promoting small business and cooperative, which is important but should not be at the expense of distracting attention from policy making on large-scale business, on whose fortune SMMEs and co-ops will depend as suppliers of goods and services. Promoting privatization, especially as a source of revenue, whereas this merely transfers ownership at a cost without otherwise formulating constructive policy. Celebrating growth of our finance industry and financialization of our economy in general, which is essentially the intensive and extensive accumulation of fictitious capital. Finance has penetrated into ever more areas of economic and social reproduction. This is one way in which to understand neoliberalism, which has become the most dominant form of the current period of capitalism.
Honorable Hai, I'm afraid your time has expired.
Thank you.
Honorable Labuskachne. Honorable Labuskachne.
Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, fellow South Africans, when Cyril Ramaphosa assumed the position of President of the country, he promised...
Refer to the Honorable President appropriately.
I see, when Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa assumed the position of President of the country, he promised South Africans a new dawn by liberating the people of this nation from the oppressive grasp of the Zuma dynasty. 9 months later, we have yet to see the so-called new dawn that the president announced. Unemployment is rising, petrol prices are rising, crime is rising. I'm asking, when will this ANC take decisive leadership and lead this country effectively? For as long as the corrupt individuals of the ANC, who perpetuated state capture and the demise of our economy are still in power, ordinary South Africans will continue to suffer in dire unemployment conditions. The difference with the DA is that we deal directly with corruption and hold our members and public representatives to account. We have got no evidence of that in the ANC. At least 9.7 million South Africans are currently unemployed. Everyone here knows that a job can help empower an individual to first reach their full potential and earn a wage to pay for costs of living. It seems as evident from the recent unemployment statistics by Stats SA that the ANC has no desire to empower the people of South Africa. The ANC is happy to see citizens living in poverty without any hope of a better life. During the same conference that elected President Cyril Ramaphosa as the president of the ANC, the governing party, with a fight, adopted land expropriation without compensation as an official ANC policy. Let us be honest with each other. Land expropriation without compensation only forces all citizens as tenants of the government and does nothing to help empower the people most deserving of economic liberation. No citizen...
Honorable Kwele, why are you standing?
No, I just want to highlight to Honorable
No, you
Labuskaghni
can't do that. Honorable Kwele, take your seat.
She's late. We have adopted the report. We are going to
Honorable
expropriate.
Kwele, we are out of order. Continue, Honorable Labuskaghni.
No citizen would be able to own any form of property whatsoever. This is simply further evidence for the people of South Africa that the ANC, and most probably with the late new partners in corruption, the EFF, has no vision to empower anyone except them for themselves. Land expropriation without compensation will only chase away international investment, further hampering a South African economy in recession, which will result in more job losses. How can we trust the same ANC that gave us Jacob Zuma, the father of state capture, to own and be the custodian of all land and property in South Africa? The DA believes in empowering South Africans through protecting individual rights, such as property ownership. This past September, Mayor Herman Mashaba handed out 488 title deeds to residents of Soweto. One recipient said, "Even when I pass away, I can leave this title deed for generations to come. I am excited." In the same month, the DA handed over 1,000 title deeds across the Western Cape. Title deeds and property ownership allow for parents to ensure that there is a capital for their children to inherit. This is about caring for the most vulnerable people of our nation. An increase in job creation would result in a more productive population. With an increasingly productive population, more citizens will be capable of being critical of the government and finally realize that the ANC is total failure and needs to be voted out. In the past year, the Western Cape, where the DA governs, added 75% of the total jobs created in South Africa. With such a productive province as the Western Cape, voters are aware of what the DA can provide to the citizens. Their trust in the DA during the 2009 and 2014 general elections is a clear indication that they are satisfied with our results. It is worth noting that all provinces get an equitable share of the national budget, yet residents experience inadequate service delivery due to corruption and political instability. But here in the Western Cape, the DA has had political will to provide a functioning provincial government that delivers to the people and creates an economic environment that is constantly growing and adding jobs to the market. Every day, South Africans across all other 8 provinces are realizing the good, clean, transparent governance style of the DA, and they are roaring for change. State capture has been one of the primary causes of job losses in South Africa. Across the various ministerial departments, from Sex for Jobs and Schools to the VBS bank looting, South Africans are feeling the pressure of an economy that is crumbling. Coupled with the ANC's radical economic transformation economic policies, job creation is sure to remain a distant dream in the clouds. Job creation relies on a government that creates a healthy economic environment for job growth from a collaboration between both the public and private sector. The ANC of Jacob Zuma and the ANC of President Cyril Ramaphosa are in the same WhatsApp group. Under the DA South Africa, citizens can look forward to a government that will look after their interests, create an environment for an economy that is poised to grow, and good, clean, transparent governance that will always be accountable to the people. I thank you.
You. The Limpopo MEC of Treasury, MEC Tuli.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson of the NCOP. Chairperson, Honourable members of the NCOP, a very good afternoon. Tawela, Awusheni, Macheroni, Awa, Matsari. In his State of the Nation address this year, Cyril Ramaphosa made the commitment that job creation will be at the centre of government's agenda in 2018. The President subsequently launched the Youth Employment Service, YES, initiative responding to the youth unemployment, and youth unemployment is the most pressing socio-economic challenge facing the country today. Research has indicated that education, skills training, health services, access to opportunities, and transport have a positive impact on economic development and employment. Globally, the private sector creates 9 out of every 10 jobs. In South Africa, only 18% of the working age population earn monthly salaries. A total of 75% of the unemployed people in our country are unskilled. We are of the opinion that the informal sector specifically has the ability to contribute significantly to the employment in South Africa. However, currently the performance of the sector is slow when compared to other developing countries in the BRICS group. Perhaps we need to tweak some policies to improve labour absorption in this very vibrant sector of our country. The majority of the unemployed are aged between 15 and 34 years old, relating to a total of over 80%. Youth unemployment is a major problem and needs to be addressed. In Limpopo, we have regions where unemployment is that much higher. For instance, in the region of Mopani, where unemployment exceeds 48%, compared to regions such as the Waterberg, where it's far lower. The poor state of education system also plays a role in unemployment, especially regarding the youth and unskilled. For example, the unemployment rate for youths without grade 12 is 3 times higher than for youths who have completed grade 12. This statistic should be emphasized to our scholars regularly in an attempt to mitigate the high school dropout statistics we face as a province and a country. The private sector provides 86% of all employment, while government provides the remaining 14%. Only 41% of all the economically active people are employed, with the youth sector being the most affected, as I've mentioned, Chairperson. Traditional economic sectors such as manufacturing have declined when it comes to their contribution towards job opportunities if compared to jobs created in the services sector. More and more workers are in temporary employment with no fixed monthly income. In South Africa, honourable members, since 2008, manufacturing jobs have been lost, while services jobs, sales and services, that is, have increased by the same amount of approximately 300,000 jobs over the 3-year period. Current trends are towards knowledge or skills-intensive services economy. This situation is especially affecting the youth, and linked to this situation is the low levels of self-employment entrepreneurship in our country. Considering the demand for skills in the economy, it is fundamental that we focus on developing the appropriate skills for our youth. The current skills challenge we face in Limpopo, Chair, is the development of the Messina-Makado Special Economic Zone. For this initiative to be effective on reducing unemployment, the requisite skills are essential. And as a province, we have approached the various tertiary institutions in the province, namely Limpopo University, Univen, and our TVET colleges to assist in developing these skills. The risk, Chairperson, will be that if we don't have the requisite skills the investor requires, that being China, they will import the necessary skills from their country, defeating the objective of these massive investments to reduce unemployment. Chairperson, since 2008, the government has invested substantially in infrastructure, and this process will continue as a tool to combat low growth. The program to develop emerging contractors in public works is assisting. However, we still see the dominance of the previous large construction companies dominating the space. And therefore, we need to see a lot more emerging contractors progressing to the point where they are able to bid for multi-million infrastructure projects. This sector will substantially contribute to job creation over the next decade. And the mining sector has shown a negative growth over the last 2 decades, Chair, although it is one of our province's economic pillars. There has been significant mechanization of the sector, and we therefore do not expect this industry to absorb as much labor as we anticipate. Agro-processing, which is dependent on the agricultural sector and the manufacturing sector, has a huge growth potential in Limpopo. We have seen the construction of an agro-processing plant in Wanedi region of Vembe, which is thriving with over 20 small-scale farmers delivering to this agricultural hub. The sector is the cornerstone of economic development and has the potential to contribute substantially to job creation, as is seen in the Vembe region. The tourism sector has been growing at a rapid rate, and this trend will continue and does contribute substantially to job creation. We have witnessed this in the sense that Limpopo was the second most visited destination in the country by local tourists in the last financial year. We continue to fund the promotion of our province through the Limpopo Tourism Agency, and as this sector is dynamic, we look forward to focusing on the strategy on the younger age group between the age of 18 and 35 who dominate the tourism market and visit our country. And these tourists do not necessarily want the 5-star hotels and the mass tourism experience, but rather personal and unique experience. This should be seen as an opportunity in our rural communities in the province. One example that I'd like to give to this Honourable House is the Rabola art route in the Elam town of Vembe, where youth established this route to enhance the experience and the sale of unique African art and culture. Take a look at Love Limpopo on the Facebook pages and you'll see this route. Very interesting. The country's rate of individuals becoming entrepreneurs is low at 14% compared to the low global average of 27%, as well as the rate of establishing new businesses is at 2.3% compared to the global average of 8%. The NDP aspires to create 11 million jobs by 2030 with an annual GDP growth rate of 5.4%. However, Honourable Speaker, Honourable Chairperson, we are aware that these predictions are not being met, and therefore we have to change tactic to some extent and understand that we are an economy that grows on an average of 3% a year, and therefore our strategy must take this into account when planning for growth in jobs. According to the National Development Plan, public employment schemes are important towards increased employment
Honourable
rates.
MEC, sorry, Honourable MEC. Let me take Honourable Isaac. Honourable Isaac, why are you standing?
Honourable Chairperson, the MEC at the podium just made a comment. I don't want to debate with you, so I'd like to ask him a question.
Okay, let's first ascertain whether he's ready to take your question. Honourable MEC, are you ready to take a question?
Could I take the question after I've concluded, sir?
At the end of the speech.
I'll take any question after we've concluded.
Continue, Honourable MEC. Take your seat.
That's correct. Quite correct, sir. Our experience, Honourable Chair, is that our municipalities, when we come to EPWP and Community Works Programme, are the two main public employment schemes, and these schemes need to employ or create 2 million jobs opportunities per year. Our experience in this sector, Honourable Chair, is that our municipalities are not coming close to meeting the targets of EPWP and CWP programs. This has been raised with this sphere of government, and as a provincial government, we, during our IGR engagements, will follow up on this issue. In collaboration with the National Growth Programme, the Industrial Development Corporation has established the Green Industries Special Business Unit with a 5-year budget of 22 billion rand. it is estimated that 462,000 jobs could be created in the green economy. We should see this green economy as an opportunity, honourable members, considering the empirical evidence of global warming and climate change. Surely this calls for us as a government to look at alternative energy options, including our public transport sector. Let's fundamentally address the transformation of the sector by introducing electric buses. In fact, in the province, we will be testing an electric bus and see if this can reduce our costs as well as stimulate our manufacturing sector. Should this bus option work, and considering we need to recapitalize our bus services at the cost of 500 million rand, we could consider the option of constructing these buses at our industrial parks in places such as Seshego and in Kwankwa. One of the labour-intensive sectors which is part of the job drivers is the agricultural sector. This sector has been neglected, leading to a partial rural decay in the province. The agricultural sector has contracted drastically over the past few decades in terms of employment and production. In 1971, when there was no labour protection, the agricultural sector employed a number of people. However, this has reduced significantly. We see this sector playing a more significant role in economic development, especially in rural areas. Proposals to assist the growth of the sector include provision of infrastructure, improved linkages between commercial and small farmers, improved land reform processes, technological development, and improved policy implementation. Our funding to emerging farmers has increased considerably, and with an assistance of commercial farmers, a number of emerging farmers in the avocado industry have emerged to become sustainable farmers and job creators. In September 2013, the long-awaited Youth Job Subsidy Bill, officially known as the Employment Tax Incentive Bill, was released, and the overall goal of the bill is to accelerate job creation for the youth of South Africa. The Department of Trade and Industry is implementing the Industrial Policy Action Plan, or IPAP, for South Africa in collaboration with the Industrial Development Corporation. The IPAP has the following focus, namely diversification of the economy, labour-absorbing industrialization, infrastructure development, and movement to a knowledge economy. The overall principles of IPAP are to reverse the threat of deindustrialization and improve value-adding and labour-intensive sectors. The IPAP has identified a number of threats regarding the strengthening of manufacturing in South Africa.
As you conclude, Honourable MSC.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. I'll take the questions.
Unfortunately, you see, unfortunately, we don't have the time for the question. The Eastern Cape Deputy Chairperson of Chairs, Honorable Kopana.
Honorable Chairperson of the NCOP, honorable members, honored guests, good afternoon. I bring you revolutionary greetings from the people of the Eastern Cape, the home of legends. Thank you for inviting us to this important debate on the high unemployment rate in South Africa and ways of turning the tide by growing the economy and creating jobs. Honorable Chairperson, let me begin by reaffirming that the ANC is committed to building a more equal society in which all can find decent work and enjoy sustainable livelihoods. Indeed, honorable members, the ANC government has achieved significant progress in this regard post-1994 democratic breakthrough. There has been increased protection for workers, expansion of the black middle strata, and the creation of work opportunities through the expanded provision of social and economic infrastructure. In the 24 years of our governance, we have significantly improved the lives of South Africans, even though our economy has not been performing strongly. This has been confirmed by a report that was released by the Institute for Race Relations, which stated that, I quote, despite high unemployment, more people are taking part in the economy, with 58.1% market participation in 2015, up from only 47.7% in 1994, close quote. The report further explained that more than double the amount of Black Africans were unemployed in 2015.
Order, Honorable Nkopane. Please take your seat. The Honorable Member Smith.
Honorable House Chair, I would like to know if the Honorable Member on the podium will take a question on one of her statements just now.
Honorable Nkopane, are you ready to take a question?
You can SMS me.
She's not ready. She is not ready. Continue, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Chair.
Order, Honorable Kaula, order. Order, Honorable Mokwele, is between the two.
The number of Black Africans were unemployed in 2015 than they were in 1994. Although we know, Chair, and the House, that before 1994, the population and the governance of the era was characterized by weak and unrealistic records, as the majority of South African citizens were not in the population register, neither on the voters' roll, so the human rights were trampled on. Despite these phenomenal results and observations, unemployment in South Africa is unacceptably high. 2 decades since the end of apartheid, South Africa's labor market remains characterized by persistently high levels of unemployment, substantial earnings inequality, a surplus of unskilled labor, and acute skills shortages in areas that are key for economic growth. The quarterly labor force survey confirmed that the official unemployment rate increased by 0.5% in the second quarter of 2018. It explained that the increase was a result of a decline of 90,000 in the number of people in employment, and an increase of 102,000 in the number of people who became unemployed between the first quarter and the second quarters of 2018. The high employment rate in further is worsened by an unfavorable global economic situation, such as high rising oil price, which has a negative impact.
Order, Honorable Smith, order.
On our fragile economy. Unemployment in our province, that is the Eastern Cape province, is in the highest in the country, which is one of the reasons for the high rates of out-migration to other provinces and an over-concentration of populations in urban areas. For us, honorable members, this debate, for millions of South Africans, is a living reality. A living reality which we must work together to find lasting solutions that will help us overcome the structural problem of unemployment. This requires us to be honest and frank in our analysis of the rising problem of unemployment in the country. At its 54th National Conference, the ANC admitted that, I quote, current factors such as persistent low levels of economic growth, rising national debt, some weaknesses of state-owned companies, low levels of business and consumer confidence, low investment levels, credit ratings, downgrades, policy inconsistencies, and public and private sector corruption have limited the ANC-led government's ability to drive socio-economic transformation and address South Africa's triple challenge of inequality, poverty, and unemployment, close quote. We need to turn the tide. We need to grow an inclusive economy and create jobs. Honorable Chairperson, in the light of the above, the Eastern Cape fully supports the announced stimulus and recovery plan by the President of the Republic, His Excellency Ere Moratang Haholo, Ntate Mo Presidenta wa rona, Ntate Mohlomphehi Cyril Ramaphosa. As explained, the stimulus package will, amongst other, ignite economic activity, restore investor confidence, prevent further joblessness, and create jobs. We need to have a specific focus on manufacturing and industrial parks. We need to boost the tourism sector and invest in sustainable energy. We must invest in the township revitalization in order to grow the local economy, which will contribute to the creation of jobs. This includes support for SMMEs and cooperatives. We must wage a relentless and uncompromising fight against corruption and fraud, both in the public and private sectors. At the center of the 290 billion rand investments that was announced at the investment conference must be the creation of jobs. We must invest in infrastructure development, especially in areas in the country that were largely affected by apartheid spatial patterns of development, such as the Eastern Cape, which is largely a rural province with a significant population living in remote rural areas. We must therefore support the establishment of an infrastructure fund and improve the investment in the municipal social infrastructure announced by the President as part of the stimulus and recovery plan. As the Eastern Cape province, we are committed to creating an enabling environment for job creation and for business to prosper. This is the year of renewal, unity, and jobs. The year to celebrate 100 years of Nelson Mandela and Albertina Sisulu. As the home province of these outstanding leaders of our people, we want to assure you that the Eastern Cape government will support all the efforts to create jobs and overcome the triple challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. I thank you, Chair.
Ria Leboga. Thank you, Honorable Member. The Honorable Member Mukwili.
Chair, I'm too short, but it's okay. Thank you, Chair, for giving us this opportunity to debate on a subject matter of today. Every parliamentary term, we have the same debates, and every time we debate, we have provided the ANC with a clear program and policies on how to address the high unemployment rate in this country, and not only grow the economy, but develop it. The difference between economic growth and economic development must not be ignored, because while economic growth may only be limited to enriching a few individuals, economic development is to the benefits of the society and economy as a whole. South Africa is the perfect example of this. When we experienced a high level of economic growth in the early 2000s, we also experience some of highest level of unemployment in this country has ever seen. This can be put down to a number of factors, but the fundamental reason is the ANC's unconditional embrace of free market, neoliberal, and capitalism. And the result of this is why this country has such high level of inequality and unemployment, particularly youth unemployment. The free flow of goods and capital in a rigged national and international economy saw our manufacturing sector collapse, leading to job losses in the hundreds of thousands. The decision to destroy state capacity and rely on outsourcing facilitated corruption and saw unemployment explode. And the loosening of financial regulations saw wealth desperately needed to develop the country leave South Africa, and financialization of economy. Financialization of economy. What we are seeing now with the talk of cutting the amount of public servant, the continued belief in the free market, finalization, and more recently the deliberate collapse of the SOEs is a repetition of those very same mistakes. There are examples across the world of what we can and should be doing to develop our country, create jobs, and lift our peoples out of poverty. Expropriation of land without compensation is the starting point. But the way things are going by this time, we can beg the SOEs will be...
Take your seat. There's a hand. Take your seat. Okay. The Honorable Member Wana, why are you standing?
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I humbly ask whether the Speaker can take a question.
Honorable Mukwele,
I can take a question.
She's ready.
Thank you. I understand you are always saying financial. What cost that financial is based in which percentage when you are talking about the creation of jobs?
I can't hear your question clearly. What are you saying?
I'm asking, what financials are you referring? Financial in terms of private corporation or a public sector, or financials in terms of the units that you have costed? That's a question.
The manner in which the financial systems of the country are and carried by the ruling government. That's the financials that we are talking about. If we can be able to transform the finances of the country and be able to make sure that we improve in the manner in which we are dealing with the economy of the country, we will improve. Thank you very much. What is currently happening in the Department of Public Enterprise is the deliberate. I'm going to answer him when I'm done. What is currently happening in the Department of Public Enterprises is the deliberate sabotage and collapse of SOEs so that they can bought up by the friends and puppet of the master called Joshua Doe. SOEs and internal state capacity should be central to the overall growth, development, and job creation strategy of the state. There are many examples of why we say this, but there is no better of this example than the People's Republic of China. Over the last 40 years, China, under the guidance and leadership of the Communist Party, has experienced economic growth and development unprecedented in human history, and according to the World Bank, has been able to lift 800 million people out of poverty during that time. In this development, the state played a fundamental role, from state-owned banks, state-owned energy companies, state ownership, nurturing and protection of local industry and manufacturing, to the leaps it has made in the last 10 years to be a better in high-tech technologies, such as artificial intelligence and robotics. The Chinese state has played a central role. That is why we are saying nationalization and expropriation. So instead of privatizing SOEs, reducing state capacity, exposing our local manufacturing industry to competition, and the continued financialization of the economy, if we want to create jobs, the following must happen. This word is very difficult. First and foremost is the expropriation of land without compensation to be placed under the state custodianship. I will teach you, Hatting, what we mean by that. We need to nationalize strategic sectors of economy, including Reserve Bank
Honorable Mokwele,
and health.
Honorable Mokwele,
Any
please
talk?
take your seat.
Okay.
The Honorable Smith.
Honorable House Chair, two points. Firstly, the honorable member referred to other member in the House on their name and not appropriately. The second thing I want to know whether it's parliamentary for a member, and specifically the member on the podium, to be in political regalia within the House
Where
today.
have you seen it?
Okay, the Honorable Member Mokwele, please refer to the Honorable Hatting.
Honorable Hatting, I will teach you.
Listen to me. Give me a chance to rule. Refer to the Honorable Hatton as Honorable Member Hatton, and unfortunately, Honorable Smith, there's no specific rule about the dress code.
Yes, thank you.
The only thing that we need to do is to dress formal. Continue, Honorable Mokwele.
Thank you very much. You need to read your rules and what have you seen here? That is EFF. So you went to an extent of wanting to see what I'm wearing inside. Honorable Hatting.
Honorable Mokwele,
Is a repetition of those same mistakes. What are you saying, Chair? What must I do?
I am saying continue the debate. I'm done.
All right. Why should I open my jacket, Chief? What do you want to see under my jacket? Hmm?
The Honorable Member Mokwele.
Must I continue?
Continue, ma'am.
Okay.
As long as you feel that you're
Economy,
presentable,
including the
there's nothing wrong
Reserve
with
Bank, and held any talk of privatization of SOEs. We need to capacitate the state and do away with outsourcing and tender system so that it has the state has the internal capacity to deliver services through the establishment of new state entities like a state-owned construction company for the building of infrastructure, and we need a state bank. But this is all advice we have been giving before, but it seems the ANC is set on making the same mistake it made in the past. There is a saying that goes, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Honorable Member Mokwele.
So, thank you very much.
Your time is expired.
We are going to expropriate land without compensation. And as the EFF, we are ready to take over. That is why we are saying the land must be under the custodianship of the state. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Mokwele.
There's no money that I must pay.
The Honorable Member Kaola, as long as the Honorable Member feels that the way he or she is wearing is presentable, there's nothing we can do about that. The Honorable Deputy Minister, you're welcome to our House.
Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, my humble greetings. It's a great honor for me to be part of the debate on high employment rate in South Africa and looking at ways to curb it up. I will choose a particular angle if I wanted to be very political. And I will start by saying the government of the ANC has initiated an infrastructure program that has delivered in Saldanha Bay a gas storage facility that has created a lot of jobs here. And I will still say it has also, is getting an investor to buy a shared oil storage facility here and create jobs here in Cape Town. I would still say it has brought about a BRT system that we have seen, what we call a My City, that has facilitated transport and created a lot of jobs here. I would still say the building up of confidence through the stimulus intervention, we shall see more traffic in ship here in Cape Town, and it will create more jobs. I will still say the stimulus package is targeting agriculture, and within agriculture, it includes facilitation of providing resources for the drought-stricken provinces, and it will change agriculture here in Cape Town. I'll still say again, I'll again say to members, PICC has assisted Zandvliet Wastewater to have a water license that will facilitate and promote investment in the Western Cape here and create jobs. So, but there's still more that I can actually talk to, and many more that I can talk to in that way. But we can't be politicizing, this subject, because all of us as government, including our provinces and our municipalities here in Cape Town, in the province here, and all the other 8 provinces, we always sit together and look a little bit ahead of where South Africa is supposed to be. This is a very critical subject, a global challenge that every nation is watching. In most cases, the rate of unemployment indicators mirror the extent of socio-economic performance for each nation state. It also correlates with the state of poverty, hunger, deprivation, and levels of inequalities in the land. So we can't play football about this. The ILO flagship report is projecting that unemployment is stabilizing at 192 million of the total global workforce. And meanwhile, unemployment and decent work deficit stay persistently high in many parts of the world. The report also decried the fact that global economy is still not producing enough jobs and called for a need for additional efforts to be put in place, not only to reduce unemployment, but also to improve quality of work for the job holders and ensuring equitable shared growth. The report further estimates that in 2019, vulnerable employees is on the rise with an estimated 1.4 billion in 2017, and a further 35 million is expected in 2019, while poverty reduction is very slow. In developing countries, vulnerable workers are estimated by the same report at 75%. Therefore, honorable members, when you talk about this matter, politicizing it doesn't assist us, but bringing together heads and identifying things that are supposed to assist us are going to be able to assist us. Youth under 25% represent 62%, under 25 represent 62% of sub-Saharan African unemployed population. Yes, Honorable Chair, we have to do something about this, because the effect of youth unemployment represent the following: moral tragedy of lost young lives and livelihood for young people and their families. Business laws for employees who struggle to fill entry-level jobs with good and skilled workers. Public policy interest in lost economic potential and threat to social stability for the country. Youth unemployment not only limits the earnings potential and future prospects of new generation of South Africans, but it also stymies business growth, weakens social cohesion, and put pressure on government resources. It is for this reason that South Africa has come up with a number of initiatives to respond to unemployment challenges toward the creation of qualitative jobs. For the period, because we are in government, we can't just lament and visualize a future somewhere where we have never been. Because we are in government, we'll then give you an opportunity to share with you what South Africans have been struggling on since 1994 up to today and show you the efforts of how we respond to this and so that we can take it forward. For the period between 1994 and 2008, the country focused on bringing the social stability of the country by introducing a number of laws aimed at transforming South African society. It has adopted economic stabilization policies that have seen the economy growing at above 5%. Unfortunately, at that point, it was a jobless growth. But after 2008 global financial crisis, South Africa again came together and rallied everyone to come together and look at the challenges that South Africa is facing. Because we are the leader of the society as the ANC. And what we have actually done was to rally all stakeholders.
The Honorable Member Oliphant, you know you can't do that.
Who adopted a growth path which was anchored by infrastructure development, and it identified 7 growth drivers. And in 2012, what did we do again? Rallied the nation to say, if we want to move forward, we have to have our own development plan. And we adopted a national development plan. And as part of strengthening both the NDP and the NGP, the social partners in NEDLEC has adopted a number of accords that are assisting us to move forward. And amongst these social accords is what we call a youth employment accord that was adopted in 2013. And I hear members regurgitating things that are supposed to be done. And the youth accord did indicate to us to say, we have to focus on development of skills through education and training. We have to focus on entrepreneurship development. And we have to look at setting aside certain initiatives that we must give to young people to innovate for the future. It has actually also looked at identification of public sector and private sector intervention area. Since then, what have we seen? We have seen an employment increasing by 13.6% to 6 million for young people. However, we know that this has not been enough to counter the effect of the 6.7% growth in labor force, which grew up to 9.9%, resulting into 2.8% of the unemployed youth. Since the growth path, 2.7 million jobs were created, yet unemployment has increased by 1.6, again indicating a global challenge that has been identified by the ILO, that all of us were not actually carrying out tasks to be able to, enough effort to counter unemployment. In 2018, the President once more rallied government collective to develop stimulus towards the resuscitation of our economy and generating more jobs. The stimulus cut across these job drivers that we adopted in 2010, and it also looked at policy reviews accelerating and implementation of some strategic initiative, as well as reviewing SOEs to serve as an economic development and job creation. A job summit was convened, made out of delegation from different stakeholders, the business, government, civil society, and organized labor. And that's where all the people, all stakeholders came together and committed on action that is targeting at creation of 260 jobs. And included in the commitment is the investment drive targeted at 100 billion US dollars by the president. And to this end, the investment conference was actually convened. And in that investment conference, 1,500 delegates came in, and leader of the economy, who all stood up and said, South Africa, be confident that we are going to grow because we are going to plant our money here. We have got confidence in your president. We have got confidence in the leadership of this country. And this is what is going to take you forward. We are confident that in the implementation of all this commitment, we will be able to take forward this country. On our part as a department, we shall continue to coordinate the efforts of other departments, the provinces, municipalities, to ensure alignment of efforts. And we are happy with the province of the Western Cape and its municipalities and other provincial leadership who are assisting us in terms of aligning and ensuring that we are aligning into making sure that these stimulus are working. Colleagues, if we want to see development going, we must know that it is important that education and training and skills is important. We must know that we need to beneficiate our primary commodities. We need to promote industrialization. We need to intensify entrepreneurship development, SMMEs development, cooperative development. Skilled local procurement is also one of the key that we need to be looking at. Partnership with industries is very very important. We will continue still, as part of the department, once more to use the competition authority, the ITEC, and also to ensure that our economy is inclusively growing and ensure that new entrants are actually coming into the economy. The developmental finance is very important. The National Development Bank has just committed 2 billion pounds, 2 billion US dollars in the conference towards financing of development in South Africa. The IDC, just in 2017-18, they just approved 167 billion and dispersed 15.4 billion and estimated to create 30,000 jobs. Once more, the IDC has contributed 150 million towards saving a 60-year-old company that has actually collapsed this year and lost a lot of jobs. And listen to this, what Gugu say, one of the re-employed. When the company closed, we never thought it would be safe. We want to really thank our government for what they have done. We would like the company to grow so that it can accommodate the other employees. So on the basis of that, I want to say to Gugu, with more implementation from the ITC and DFIs, the implementation of the Job Summit, tightening of the monitoring of imports, more jobs will be created, and some of the colleagues will join in. An African investment commitment, I wouldn't like to talk about it because it's actually a cherry on top of what we want to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The honorable members, order. Order. Honorable Oliphant, please don't drown the house. Please. Honorable members, allow me to welcome the newly sworn-in member, Honorable Dion Georges, who is replacing the Honorable Member Lund, who has since been in the National Assembly. Honorable Member Dion, welcome to our house. Thank you very much. We continue. I now call upon the Honorable Prince.
Okay. Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Deputy Minister of Economic Development, Honorable members and honorable special delegates, ladies and gentlemen. According to the National Development Plan, achieving full employment, decent work, and sustainable livelihood is the only way to improve living standards and ensure a dignified existence for all South Africans. Rising employment, productivity, and income are the surest long-term solution to reducing inequality. This will be achieved by expanding the economy to absorb labor and improving the ability of South Africans, people and institutions to respond to opportunities and challenges. The ANC-led government began to lay the foundation of stronger inclusive growth after the President's State of the Nation address in February and is built on 6 pillars. The first is through the package of structural reforms that address constraints to growth, covering communication, energy, and tourism. These measures immediately unlocked fresh investment in the economy and an economic output to boost GDP and jobs. The second pillar is through demand-side measures to boost local procurement through public spending, commitments by private business, and tougher enforcements at our ports of entry to crack down against illegal imports. The third pillar is through improving governance and institutions and anti-corruption programs to clean up public administration and make sure that the state is there to serve the people. The fourth pillar is through building deeper and bigger markets for our goods and for our services. The signing of the Continental Free Trade Agreement by the President in July is an important step towards recreating a market of 1 billion consumers that are factories. The fifth pillar is through transformation of the economy to unlock the energy and the enterprise of small and medium enterprises of youth and women in South Africa. The sixth pillar is through investment. The investment conference in October with domestic and foreign investors already delivered positive results, seeing the encouraging rise in private investment in the last quarter of 2018. Manufacturing continues to be a major sector of South Africa's economy, providing a significant base for skilled employment opportunities. Through its Industrial Policy Action Plan, IPAP, government seeks to transform the structure of South Africa's manufacturing base through creating new dynamic levels of competitiveness in the sector. We will redouble our efforts to change the colonially defined structure of our economy as a producer and exporter of primary commodities through industrialization and moving up value chains. Secondly, we will intensify efforts to promote greater inclusion of historically disadvantaged Black people in positions of ownership, management, leadership, and control. The Industrial Policy Action Plan to support industrial development includes stronger emphasis on the most job-creating sectors and industries such as clothing and textiles, agro-processing, and component manufacturing. Redoubling our efforts to raise domestic demands for locally manufactured products through localization of public procurement.
Honourable Prince, please take your seat. The Honourable Member Mokwele, you're standing.
No, I just want to check, Chair, whether the speaker will be able to take a question and explain to us
Okay, thank you
how
very much.
will they be
Honorable
doing
Mokwele. Honorable Mokwele,
the
we need to check with the honorable
industrialization.
member first. If ever she's ready to take a question. Are you ready to take a question?
No,
ma'am?
thank you, Chairperson.
She's not ready, Honorable Mokwele.
In persuading the private sector to also support localization and local supplier development, building a stronger system of industrial finance and incentives to support and secure higher levels of investment in the productive sectors of the economy, and beginning to reposition the economy to prepare for the fourth industrial revolution. Advancing transformation in the tourism sector is important. The popularity of South Africa as a tourist location highlights the need for more streamlined support with the emphasis on the security of tourists and the visa policy of the country. Chairperson, government measures to support small business and cooperatives have been scaled up to ensure their impact is felt across the economy. The stimulation and protection of township-based economy activities is also important in this regard. Access to finance is one of the key constraints faced by startups or existing SME entrepreneurs who wish to diversify or explore a new opportunity. Time and time again, these startups, young people, people living with disabilities and women in particular, tell us of their frustration with banks and development finance institutions who refuse to support them because they are perceived as high-risk ventures. Therefore, we are pleased to announce 2 new streams of finance in which we will have the power to define the criteria and conditions which I can ensure this House will be more progressive and enabling. Chairperson, a core tenet of government small business policy is the provision of finance to start-up enterprises and those that struggle to get funding from commercial finance institutions. Since its establishment 6 years ago, CFA has financed 286,000 SMMEs and cooperatives to the value of 5.5 billion. The provisional 2017-18 financial year loan performance indicators show that CFA disbursed 1.2 billion to 45,035 SMMEs and cooperatives and facilitated 54,144 jobs. Integral to its mandate, CFA has during the last 12 months provided targeted finance support to 44,792 black-owned enterprises to the value of 836 million, 9,229 youth-owned enterprises to the value of 191 million, 44,116 women-owned enterprises to the value of 403 million. The National Gazelle program.
The Honorable Member Prince. Honorable Mokwele, the Honorable Member indicated earlier on that she's not ready to take a question.
On a point of order.
What is the point of order?
You know, there is a problem about numbers in the ANC. So it's 100 and
is that a point of order, Honorable
thousands.
Member?
What are you actually saying?
Honorable Mokwele,
can you request Honorable De Beer to assist on numbering?
Honorable Mokwele, take your seat. The Honorable Member said she's not ready to take
The National Gazelles program targeting high potential and high growth businesses remain one of our flagships, of which we are extremely proud. Currently, the program is supporting 80 companies and will, over the course of 3 years, assist them to grow the access new markets. Chair, werksgeleenthede vir jong mense is 'n prioriteit. Insluitend effektiewe publieke werksgeleenthede programme internskappe, plasing, aankope van jeugeigenskap, ondernemings- en jeugdentrepreneursprogramme. Groter effectieve gebruik van die Nasionale Jeugontwikkelingsagentskap is besig om groter steun te verleen aan jong mense in die landelike omgewing en onderwerke klas jong mense in stedelike gebiede. Jeugondersteuning moet in die telkaart opgeneem word vir ondernemings en wie die staat goedere en dienste aankoop. Die Nasionale Jeugontwikkelingsagentskap het reeds 'n waardeketting vir entrepreneurskap gevestig wat vaardigheidsontwikkeling, opleiding, ontwikkelings van die finansiering, mentorskap, ondersteuning en markkoppeling insluit. Meer as 2500 start-ups besighede is befonds wat meer as 10.000 werksgeleenthede geskep het. En verdere 25.000 jong mense is in 'n posisie geplaas gedurende die afgelope 3 jaar. Government has done much through its public employment programs and investment in infrastructure to give priority to young people and women. It introduced the employment tax incentives to encourage companies to employ more young people. Government, business, labor and civil society involved in the job summits, and I think the Honorable Deputy Minister also referred to that. So extraordinary measures to create jobs on a scale that we never before seen in the country.
Your time is expired.
Thank you, Chairperson. Yeah.
Your time is
Thank
expired.
you.
Thank you very much, ma. Thank you. The Honorable Isaac.
Honorable members. Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, and my fellow South Africans. The struggle for 1976, I hope the minister is in the house. Where's the deputy minister gone to? He's gone.
Continue with
Okay,
your
he
debate.
hit a
Honorable
duck.
Isaac.
Yes, Honorable Speaker. The struggle of 1976 for my fellow South Africans was about personal and political freedom. Today's struggle remains the struggle for jobs and opportunities. Very sadly, many of you have come here and spoke about the last 25 years.
Order.
So allow
Honorable
me then.
Isaac. Honorable Isaac, please
Yes,
take
ma'am.
your seat.
The struggle
Take your
of
seat, Honorable
1996 was the struggle of
Uh,
the
the
language of
Honorable Member Mukwele,
Afrikaans
the Honorable
to be
Mem- Honorable
scrapped in
Member
the system
Mukwele.
of education. That was
The Honorable Member Mukwele, you know you cannot just stand up and start doing what you're doing. That is totally out of order. Continue, Honorable Isaac.
Apology accepted, Honorable Mukwele. You got to take these chances. Nevertheless, let us just get down to the crux and the facts of the matter at hand. It is then a case that after 25 years of our prized democracy, that our people, of course, young and old, are still provided inadequate education that destroys the opportunity for them to gain access to the job markets, a quality independent future with security and peace for all of us as a nation that aspire to. Nevertheless, the youth of South Africa remain, of course, the future of our country and the future, of course, of our revenue income. Let's not lose sight of that. Yet, half of this country's most productive workforce remains unemployed. Job creation remains the only sustainable way for our country to remain economically viable and, of course, attract investment. The key to job creation is creating a prosperous economy, not, of course, creating a mammoth government destined for failure and corruption, which, of course, we are living with day to day. So therefore, I say to you, my fellow South Africans, without a growing and vibrant economy, we continue to dismally fail in addressing the injustices. Everyone understands small businesses remain the catalyst for any free market economy in creating jobs. But through the failing ANC economic policies, small businesses are crumbling across our nation. If this sector is failing, where then, I must ask, will the jobs come from? Eskom and the SABC have announced that they are shedding jobs, while Standard Bank just announced yesterday that they will be cutting some 500 jobs in their IT department.
If the ANC then cannot even create and keep jobs in this swelling public sector, while presiding over a country with a weakening private sector, what use then, Chairperson, are they to the people of this beautiful nation? I say to you, the ANC remains all about big government, big business, and big labor, with the poor and unemployed way down in the pecking order. It therefore remains, it is time for this ANC government to simply admit that their policies are just not working anymore. Unfortunately, for many South Africans, Barack Obama has a better chance of becoming US president again than the ANC making such an admission. And I trust you will digest that, Honorable De Beer. It seems so convenient then for ministers, such as Honorable Patlabili Dlamini, to have a high-paid job where, of course, ministers like her can afford all the liquor that they desire. But the average unemployed South African cannot even afford a loaf of bread. It is really a very sad state of affairs, and we have to live with this fact. Therefore, the time has come, Chairperson, and my fellow South Africans, the time has come for the ANC to suck up their pride, step aside and allow and let new leadership clean up your mess. The DA in the Western Cape, as well as in the various metros, where we either govern or lead a coalition, Honorable Makue, listen carefully. We have proven beyond doubt that we are capable of being this new leadership. Therefore,
Order,
I
Honorable
ask you then,
Isaac. Honorable
yes,
Isaac.
ma'am.
Take your seat, Honorable Isaac.
Honorable Mateme is in the house.
Honorable
Oh, wow.
Isaac.
Okay. Yes,
Honorable
ma'am.
Isaac, take
Cool,
your
I'm
seat.
quite chilled, ma'am. No worries.
Before I allow you, Mama, Honorable Oliphant. Yes, you're standing.
House Chair, is the honorable member at the podium prepared to take a question?
Are you ready to take a question, Honorable
I
Isaac?
promise you, I'll take this question if you stop my clock. I'll take the question if you stop the clock.
He's not ready, Honorable.
Stop the clock and I'll take the question because I want to finish my speech. Please, Honorable
he's
Chairperson,
not
I
ready.
appeal to you, stop the clock so I can take the member's question.
Honorable Isaac, Honorable Kunadi, please take your seat. He's
Well, I
not
tried
ready.
very hard. Honestly, I tried very hard. So, therefore, I say to you, my fellow colleagues, to the ANC, move aside. The people of South Africa are going to fire you in the next 5-6 months. Believe you me, the time has come. Honorable Deputy Minister is not in the house. Now, let's be honest. The Honorable Deputy Minister, his defense has been pathetic. He came here and stood here. Did he honestly speak with conviction and like an absolute true minister leading like a statement? Absolute pathetic defense. I wanted to ask him, he's not here. What honestly has improved? What honestly has improved? He talks about the economic stimulus. He talks about economic stability. When then is this country then going to move economically forward and have some stability? Honorable Makue is writing with passion there, but he realizes, he talks of the Youth Employment Accord. What Youth Employment Accord? More youth remain unemployed in this country than ever before. And you come here and you stand here and blow your trumpet about the Youth Unemployment Accord. Absolute nonsense. Finally, how come the continued shortfall then in the country's revenue income? There is no stimulus. Stop dreaming.
The Honorable
ANC
Member
has
Isaac,
failed South Africa.
Honorable Isaac.
Honorable Prince.
Honorable
please.
Isaac.
Yeah, Mama.
Take your seat.
Yeah, sure, Mama.
Honorable
Aye,
Mukwele,
okay.
why are you standing?
Yes, Mama.
Is it parliamentary to use the word nonsense?
Honorable Mukwele, take your seat.
Hey, you know,
Let
you
me take
people
my-
that always talk
Honorable
nonsense.
I'm not
Isaac.
speaking to you.
Honorable
Lona.
Mukwele, take
Relax.
your seat. Honorable Mukwele,
Relax.
please take your seat. I want to make a ruling.
Ke botsa modulasetulo, wena relaxa.
Dula fatshe, mma. A gona bothata ka gare ga lefoko le la ga le šomišitšeng is parliamentary. Continue, Honorable Isaac.
You know, I'm so tired of the nonsense of these members that they don't even understand that nonsense can be used in the
Honorable
House.
Isaac,
We are
Honorable
debating,
Isaac.
Honorable Chairperson. This is a debate. Fellow South Africans are listening to us. This is,
Order,
unfortunately,
order.
the nonsense I have to contend with in this House. Nevertheless, so be it, Honorable Chairperson. The Honorable Prince came here. Ish, man.
The Honorable Isaac.
Just relax.
Honorable
We are
Mukwele,
taking land.
Honorable Mukwele.
Just relax.
Honorable
We are taking
Mukwele.
land. Relax.
Honorable Mukwele.
Just relax.
Honorable
Shock
Mokwele.
absorbers, udi kenyo, relax.
Honorable Mokwele. Continue, Isaac.
It's great, Chairperson. I don't know. She's talking about land. We're talking about unemployment. It shows you she's not sure which debate she's in. But nevertheless, the land issue, you know, is going to create a total disaster for unemployment. But be as it may.
Honorable Mokwele, order.
Honorable
Continue.
Chairperson, who's at the podium? Me or Honorable Mokwele? Make up your mind, Chairperson. Thank you so much. Honorable Mokwele, digest. I am at the podium. I'm calling the shots right now, not you. So, Honorable Prince came here, Honorable Chairperson. What did she say? What did Honorable Prince say? She said, zilch, absolutely nothing. It was pathetic that the ANC has to offer this quality of speakers. But nevertheless, as it may be, Chairperson, I want to quite frankly say to the Honorable Member from Limpopo, no, sir, with due respect, you are a quality individual and I admire you and respect you. But the economy of South Africa has never and has not grown by 3% as you came here and blurted out to South Africans. 0.5% may be a realistic figure. 0.7% may be a realistic figure. But 3%, 80 question. Here is South Africa.
Honorable
Yes,
Isaac, your time has expired.
Thank you, my fellow South Africans. It's been great.
you.
I really loved it. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
The Honorable Makua.
The Honorable Chairperson and members, the contribution that I will make to this very important debate is trade and investment to boost inclusive growth and development as a way of achieving job creation. I join in thanking the Honorable Vusi Mahwebo for initiating this debate. I am, however, disappointed as his contribution. It was anticipated that he would provide insights into ways of turning the tide by growing the economy and creating jobs. Sadly, though, not surprising, he missed the point and opportunity. The same applies to the Honorable Kathy Labuskaghni as well as the Honorable Isak. The Archbishop Desmond Tutu taught very many of us, humble people in this country, that you don't win an argument by raising your voice. This is indeed not a populist debate about the Western Cape. So let me deal first with those remarks that were made by the opposition parties. The Honorable Mahwebo builds on the farcical notion that unemployment is created by the ANC. It's untrue. Economic decline is what results in unemployment. This government, led by the ANC, is committed and has demonstrated how we are restructuring our economy in a global and in an African context. The Honorable High aptly indicated to us the importance of analyzing our difficulties. We analyze the extended definition of unemployment and take action befitting of all people in all provinces and not just one province of the country. We know who the main...
The Honorable Member Labuskaghni and the Honorable Member Oliphant. Please don't drown the speaker on the podium.
Chairperson, we know what the main categories of unemployment are. And we also know why. The ANC will do all in our means to address joblessness and growing the economy that creates sustainable and decent jobs.
The Honorable Member Mpambo Shibukwana, you are allowed to heckle, but not to drown the speaker. Please.
Chairperson, we all know who owns the economic power in this country. It's not the ANC that owns economic power. The Honorable Abuskachani talks about the new dawn and raises questions about the interventions of President Ramaphosa. I will speak to that. But then she brings in land expropriation and shows the true colors of the Democratic Alliance. Important to them is the question of title deeds, almost as a contradiction. She brags about how they are giving people title deeds, but say that no people will not get land. Because she knows that when we talk about land expropriation, we are dealing with something that is fundamental to the economic inequalities in our society. Chairperson, we in the ANC do not speak like snakes with two tongues.
Honorable Makua, will you please take your seat? Honorable Abuskachani, you are standing.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to know if the honourable member would like to take a question on expropriation.
Are you ready to take a question, Honorable Makua?
No, Chairperson, because this debate is not about expropriation.
Take your seat. He's not ready.
This debate is about
Honorable members,
unemployment.
order.
Complaining and complaining and complaining does not help the DA. Our population, our citizens deserve more than complaints. They need interaction and they need to have us as government addressing the concerns that they have. Instead of addressing the needs of our people, when I earlier on presented the motion on the University of the Western Cape and the tremendous progress that they have made, it was a DA member who voted against it because they don't want black people in this country to make progress. Chairperson, our MEC, the Honorable Mr. Tuli from Limpopo, put the emphasis on a very important strategy of the ANC, that is youth employment. In addressing the unemployment of our young people, we will be able to deal with the challenges of our future. And the private sector, he correctly said, creates fewer jobs than the informal sector. We need to look at that. Chair, the Honorable Deputy Minister Masuku told us about the interventions that is being taken by the Economic Development Department, and we welcome that. The Honorable Issa comes to the podium and talks to me. He doesn't talk to all of us. And he says that, please show me what you said yet. I am asking him to please show us what he has captured here, what he has said here is captured in the DA policies. Talk with forked tongues, like snakes. Small business in Joburg are being attacked by the DA mayor of Joburg for bringing Ebola into our country. What xenophobia can you get that is worse than that? It's the ultimate form of discriminating against Africans. And they're doing it also against Africans in South Africa. Because they need to show us in their leadership how representative the Democratic Alliance is of South African society. Please change your leadership to be more representative of South Africa. Then you don't have to go into coalitions and then find yourself unable to govern. Chairperson, we members of the ANC and leaders in government know all too well that we dare not linger. Then again, we are the first to acknowledge in humanity that with freedom comes the responsibilities. The long walk to freedom started by the generation of Tata Madiba and others has not ended. That is why we in the ANC, the ruling and the leading party in government is doing the following. Firstly, we have had a very successful presidential job summit. The social partners in that job summit, who are not necessarily members of the ANC, recognize that many of the economic enablers which have been committed to are supportive of the growth of firms, of cooperatives, of small, middle, and medium enterprises, as well as worker enterprises across all sectors of the economy. The Deputy Director General for Labour Policy and Industrial Relations in the National Department of Labour recently told the Portfolio Committee of this Parliament that it was estimated that the interventions from the Job Summit will create an additional 275,000 jobs a year. Our employment figures compel us as a nation to make the necessary interventions to turn things around. We are not coming at the podium to say we have arrived. There's work to be done. And that has been emphasized by the Honorable Masuka. The agreement on the African Free Trade Area that we will bring to this House next week is another intervention that we are making, saying let's cooperate with other countries on the African continent so that we can create jobs and deal with joblessness. The African Development Bank convened the inaugural African Investment Conference on the 7th to 9th of November this year, and speakers before me have already indicated what has happened. The outcomes and the successes of that conference. We know about the amounts that has already been generated by that. The Industrial Development Corporation, as well as the African Development Bank, this week signed a $100 billion loan agreement that will create an additional 15,000 jobs. Chairperson, at a meeting of the heads of missions that was convened by DIRCO earlier this month, we shared with our ambassadors this government strategy as to how our missions abroad would contribute towards creating additional investment in this country that will drive this economy so that it can create more jobs. Chairperson, we are in a period of a new dawn, a period of hope for a better tomorrow. In our response to the technical recession we face as our country, our president has outlined an economic stimulus package. The recently launched 15 million rand Puerto de Chaba Industrial Park, the industrial parks and the special economic zones established by this government, and we have one here also in the Western Cape, is creating jobs that we could never have imagined it would. The intervention by our International Trade and Advisory Council in terms of dollar-based reference price intervened in the sugar industry, and we are creating jobs for people that would have been very vulnerable there. We are also encouraged by the attitudes of delegates to the Africa Investment Conference and their achievement. Chairperson, we are not working away alone. The ANC is practicing revolutionary morality. We are working with the Zanele Mbeki Foundation, with the SA Women in Dialogue, and if you would mind listening rather than heckling, you would know that there is a Flowers of the Nation conference that is happening as we speak today. And in there is a particular focus to look at creating jobs for women, who are the majority in our continent. We are convinced that our economic interventions will ultimately begin to reduce the unemployment challenges facing this country.
The Honourable Member Makua, your 12 minutes.
Chair, my time has run out. I will not linger any longer. As Madiba has taught us, the ANC in humility accepts the responsibilities of freedom as per the examples of Mama Sisulu. We will create jobs.
Thank you very much. The Honourable Member Makwebu.
Honourable Chair, Honorable Chairperson, thank you very much. I just want to quickly, welcome and appreciate Mama Modisa. Thank you for coming, Mama. We're glad to see you. We survived your absence. We didn't kill each other. It wasn't easy, I can tell you that. Honorable Chairperson, I just want to appreciate and welcome the inputs, the contribution by the speakers and everyone present. Now, Honorable Khai, I just want to appreciate your honesty, because everything that you have said as the background and all the issues that you have raised, you never rebutted for 1 second the issues I've raised, that the biggest nightmare and the biggest hindrance to unemployment and job creation is corruption that is embedded in the ANC. You have never rebutted that, and that shows and demonstrates your honesty, because state capture, it is estimated that we have lost 100 billion rands, and this is the money that could have been used for job creation, skills development, and this is the money that could have been used to fund, small businesses, and the ANC stole that money. Honorable Abuskachen, I agree with you. The ANC cannot be trusted with the land, nor the EFF, because there's a saying in life: if you cannot be trusted with less, how can then you be trusted with more? Honorable MEC Tuli from Limpopo, you have lamented here and raised all the issues of poor state education, necessary or requisite skills that are lacking, and we have raised all the issues, these are the difficulties that we are facing. But you speak like an outsider, sir. You are an insider, you are in the ANC. Let me give you the advice. If the ship is sinking, jump ship. Now, Honorable Prince, you have raised issues of the NDP, the corruption and the lack of leadership and the need for integrity, and the 6 pillars of the NDP. You can have 10 pillars, you can have 15 pillars. The ANC can't be trusted in implementing 1 pillar. Shame on you, ANC. It is incompetent, it is corrupt. Now, I want to address you jointly, the Deputy Minister in absentia, as well as Honorable Makui, as I conclude. Honorable Makui, you have raised the issues that we have not given you substance. Honorable Masuku, Deputy Minister, was here. He didn't disappoint. He was vague and upset as always. He was defending the undefendable. Well, I've got advice for both of you, Honorable Makue and Deputy Minister Masuku. Dr. Chuba Okagibo once said, I quote, listen to this soberly, I quote, if you are emotionally attached to your tribe, religion, or political leaning to the point that truth and justice become secondary considerations, your education is useless. Your exposure is useless. If you cannot reason beyond petty sentiments, you are a liability to mankind. Close quote. Now, Honorable from the EFF, Honorable Mukwili, you have raised a very pertinent issue, and what you said was very profound, that year in, year out, we have assisted the ANC, we have given solutions, given the problems you are facing. Guess what? They went to slumber, they went to steal, as they always do. Now, all that is left is to unseat the ANC. The ANC is incompetent. The problem in South Africa is the ANC problem. Until the ANC is unseated, we will still be dealing with these problems. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable members, as we go home, these are the pictures and the images we have to see. This is what we are confronted with every day. These are our brothers. These are our sisters that the ANC government has failed. Once again, shame on you, ANC. Shame on you. Honorable Chairperson, as I conclude, I want to say the ANC has been given enough time. The ANC has failed dismally. It is time that it is unseated. And thank you, everyone, and may God bless Nkosi Sikelel' Afrika.
Thank you, Honorable Makwebu. Order, honorable members, order, Honorable Prince. Order, honorable members. Honorable members, I am waiting for you to give me your yes. Sure, thank you very much. That concludes the debate and the business of the day. I would like to really thank the special delegates from Limpopo Province and Eastern Cape and our Deputy Minister in absentia who managed to come and be with us in the House. I would also like to remind the members about the briefing of taking Parliament to the people to our province of Gauteng, which will take place immediately after we would have adjourned the House. Members are requested to remain standing until the procession has left the House. The House is adjourned.